Same old story, new season? After making a brave change for 2024, it looks like that's what will happen with Red Bull's RB20. Red Bull isn't like any other team, not like any car on the 2024 grid for sure, and not like Red Bull's last two cars either. The reasoning is easy to understand. As time went on, the other teams were likely to catch up to Red Bull because they were running out of ideas and were sure that a car like last year's RB19 was the only way to get around the ground effect rules. So what better way is there for them to take back control of their lives and make themselves more powerful than everyone else than to completely change the rules of the game? The fact that they are pursuing a new idea while the other teams thought they were getting close to their deepest secrets is a commanding move that is typical of this team, which has been praised for years for their bold and adventurous strategic thinking on the track. It also shows that Red Bull is getting back at them first. It takes bravery to do what Red Bull did, but early tests show that the car is just as strong as, and maybe even stronger, in the hands of Max Verstappen than the record-breaking predecessor. And most importantly, Red Bull would have lost a lot of development potential if they had stuck instead of twisting. A lot of people were upset about this new direction, and some even said it looked like Mercedes's zero side pod design, which is not at all what it is. When the Red Bull RB20 hit the track in Bahrain in the first testing morning, we could finally see what the new car looked like this season. The side pod and cooling inlet on the RB20 have been redesigned. The Milton Keynes team chose to push some Mercedes concepts really far, even though they didn't work out. Another reason is that they split the cooling intake into 3 smaller ones to make it work better. Depending on the weather at different race weekends, they might close or open some of these slits. The cooling inlet arrangement on the RB20 is different from the RB19. It did this with help from 3 different sources. The first is an entrance in the shape of a shark overbite that is under the long tray in the upper section. This intake is very small and hidden under the long profile so that it can cool the parts with the flows that lap the bottom of the profile. The SF23's bypass duct inspired the second cooling intake, which is vertical and mounted on the sidewalls of the chassis. This was already talked about during the car's presentation. Also, the last intake is behind the driver, close to the square-shaped halo. It's where the 2 gullies that push air toward the rear beam wing enter. For the grid, this was a big surprise because it's not something we've seen before the rules came in. However, this group of inlets is smaller than the RB19 because the technical team, led by Adrian Newey, decided to make the airbox longer, making it bigger and rounder. This shows that they added more radiating masses to the top of the engine cover, which means it needs more cooling. It's very telling that Red Bull sent these already cutting-edge technologies to Bahrain, where it was very hot, to test how well they could cool things down. The RB20 is definitely a big step up from the popular RB19, but there are a few important differences that we just talked about. It's made a lot of people wonder why. Anyway, Adrian Newey told Auto, Motor and Sport why Red Bull made big changes to the RB20 over the RB19. We knew everyone would copy our car from last year. If we had only focused on further development, we would have been vulnerable. Andrea Stella, the boss of the McLaren team, said that seeing the Red Bull RB20 made him go, wow. However, their expected edge over the others may come from things we don't see. Red Bull was already a very interesting team going into F1 2024 because they won 21 of the 22 Grands Prix they competed in the previous season. Their surprising concept switch with the RB20 has made things even more interesting. Many competitors look to Red Bull's successful designs in the ground effect era for ideas on how to beat them in 2024. But Red Bull changed the rules with the RB20, which doesn't look like anything else on the track for the new season. There's no doubt that Red Bull's big distraction caught many people in the F1 paddock by surprise. Stella, the principal of McLaren, said that his first thought when he saw the RB20 was, wow. McLaren hopes to beat this car with their MCL 38. But while Red Bull's new ideas are brave, Stella thinks that their success in 2023, which led them to switch their focus to the RB20 in the middle of the season, will have given them the confidence to try this new path while having the luxury of time. I have to say, when I saw the car, I was like, wow, Stella told media. They certainly were brave in changing some of the shapes that made that car so successful last year. I think they could enjoy such an advantage last year that gave them the confidence from a timeline point of view to take some risks. because I can take these risks early on to actually see whether it works. In Bahrain, Ferrari set the pace for pre-season testing, but most people in the F1 paddock think that Red Bull is once again the fastest team out there. Stella also said that the keys to Red Bull's progress might not be in what we can see, but in how the RB20 works on the inside. What I would say though is that while there is innovation that we can see microscopically, in these regulations, a lot is in the millimeters, and a lot happens in what we don't see between the underneath of the car and the ground, he continued. So while this could be the most visible, not necessarily it's the most impactful in terms of the step forward they made. Verstappen has made this his F1 era. He has won 3 straight world championships and is the clear favorite to win a 4th in 2024. Even though Ferrari may have set the fastest time in Bahrain during pre-season testing, most of the drivers believe that Red Bull has once again the fastest challenger, even though they have surprisingly moved away from their very successful idea that many of their competitors were inspired by. Some people didn't like all of these new ideas, even though they look great. The reason is that they might have been making fun of Mercedes and showing how to make a zero-pod solution. Red Bull says the only reason it chose Mercedes-style solutions for its new RB20 Formula 1 car was to get better performance. The team from Milton Keynes raised eyebrows when they showed off some ideas that Mercedes had tried before, but gave up on. It has full-length engine gullies that look a lot like the 2023 Mercedes, and an extreme form of side pods that isn't too different from the zero-pod idea. Before a season where Red Bull's competitors have heavily copied its earlier designs, the world champion's new path is going back to what their competitors have given up on. However, Christian Horner, the manager of the team, said that the move wasn't meant to tease the competitors, but rather to find ways to gain lap time. It's not tactical, it's based on performance and what we're seeing through our simulation tools, Horner said. Obviously, the car looks quite visibly different in certain areas to last year. Only the stopwatch will tell, but in the virtual world, we wouldn't have committed it to design if we didn't feel it was better. It's marginal gains in all areas, so you're constantly looking to try and evolve. If you look at the detail on the car, there's some really exquisite detail. And I think the team, there's been no complacency. They've continued to evolve, to push the boundaries. I think there's some great innovation on the car as well, which will no doubt get scrutinized over the coming weeks. Creativity has been strong in the team, and you can see that in some of the solutions that they've come up with. It's not a conservative evolution. There's some great innovation on this car. Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion, didn't agree that Red Bull had made their car more like Mercedes. I would still call it a Red Bull style, but I know what you mean. He did, however, praise the team's technical directors for trying to be proactive with the changes made to last year's winning RB19. I'm quite happy with the direction that they chose, he said. I saw the drawings, I think, in Abu Dhabi, the last race, and I was like, wow, that's quite different in a way. They've not been conservative, let's say it like that. I think what I like about the team is that we had a great package, but they took the chance to really go all out, I would say, and try to make it better. Of course, time will tell if it's really, really good. But from what I see within the team, everyone is just happy with what they have achieved in the winter. But then again, we don't know. We can't control what other people did. Thank you for watching our videos, and please let us know in the comments down below, what do you think about the new Red Bull car?